there were millions of people who tuned in and checked out Shia LaBeouf's 5 Fingers of Death freestyle on Sway in the morning. They loved it. They enjoyed the freestyle, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you were a part of the several thousand of people who watched that very same freestyle and reacted to it in a sort of way that was like, oh my God, Shia LaBeouf is better than 95% of the game. That was amazing. The technique, the words that he used. He dissed Little Yachty. He dissed Drake. He's so underrated. I can't wait to hear an album. If this was how you reacted, then I hate you. I seriously hate you. Hate is a word that I'm using very, very loosely. I don't really hate you. I just don't know another way to word it. But I'm going to explain to you why I think that that's just a wrong way to look at it. Now, this style has always been available. It's been readily available at all times. It's sort of this nerdy, this sort of battle form delivery that Shia LaBeouf brings to you. You know, sort of like Roan, Dirtbag Dan, Immaculate, rest in peace Idea. This style has always been available, this backpacking style. And I think that it's always had the advantage of being that outside alternative style. It's always had the advantage to sort of point the finger at anyone who's in the mainstream and say, the game sucks. They've always been able to do that. And Shia is just a part of a long tradition of that by saying, everything in the mainstream, you know, you guys are horrible, you guys suck, you know, miss me with that little boat, and then taking the shot at Drake, and I'll get to the Drake thing in a second. But because it's always at that advantage to pass judgment on the game, it's at that advantage because it never really participates in it. By its very nature, by its very definition, it is an alternative. It will never compete with anything that's going on in the game. And when these words are spoken of miss me with that little boat, the reaction is always better than 95% of the game. Did you hear that? Did you hear that freestyle? And that's not the case, because you're never going to hear a body of work from any of these battling styles, these West Coast sort of styles. You're never going to hear a body of work. And even if you do, you never have any interest in it. Because if you did have any interest in it, it would be the mainstream sound. And it never has been, and it never will. So this is just a cycle that keeps going round and round and round. Is Little Yachty as good as Shia LaBeouf? Absolutely not. Is he as technically sound? No. Does he have the lyrical ability that Shia LaBeouf has? No. I've heard several other Shia LaBeouf freestyles, maybe like one or two. I heard one about a year ago where he was on a beach and he was rapping to these kids, and he seemed like he was on a 4 or 5 day drug bender, and he was freestyling. I could say that most of that freestyle was actual freestyle. And by freestyle, I mean words coming together real time in your head. I could say that about 70% of that was a freestyle, whereas the 5 Fingers of Death freestyle that Shia LaBeouf just did, I would say was about 90% written and 10% freestyle, maybe 95% written and 5% freestyle, which is still very commendable that he would freestyle at all. But it's once you get over the novelty of the surprise factor of, oh my God, this Hollywood actor is he's appreciating the hip hop culture, and he's spitting a dope freestyle. He's got such good delivery and whatnot. And once you get over that novelty, I think that, say if Shia LaBeouf, for example, was to say, hey, look, I got an EP coming out, and you motherfuckers would act like you're interested in it, but you really wouldn't give a shit. You really wouldn't, because as I said, this style's always been readily available. It's always been there for you, but you tend to focus on what you don't want rather than what you do. So it's nothing that's new. I myself have always been a fan of this sort of nerdy approach. I mean, the background that I would have in my early days of listening to hip hop would be to online battles where you would hear a lot of sort of nerdy lines. And I could appreciate him. I come from that background, so I enjoy it. But I have no disillusions when I hear a freestyle like Shia LaBeouf's and say, "Oh my God, he's so much better than 95% of the game." There's probably no there's no manipulation with melody. You know, there probably wouldn't be any of that if you heard any of his music, which is the credit that you can give Lil Yachty at all, is that there seems to be some sort of an experimentation, or there seems to be a he's trying in terms of melody, not lyrically, but in giving you a full-on package of what the music is supposed to sound like, or at least to him. But, you know, to say that this is like it's really just not that serious, and it's always benefited. This sort of style has always benefited of being on the outside, and it can take whatever shots that they want because they never participate. Now, as far as the shot that he took at Drake, that's a piece of software that was downloaded when the beef started with Meek. That's a bit of software that has been downloaded into everyone's freestyle, and they're always going to use it. When they want to throw a blanket statement, of ghostwriting, they're always going to throw it, and it's always going to sound like it's directed at Drake. And most of the time it is, and that's sort of the beauty of it. That's the beauty that Meek created. Meek created this sort of vague approach to getting at Drake that is a shot towards Drake, but then again, it doesn't have to be, because ghostwriting has always been a no-no, or having a ghostwriter has always been a no-no. And now that we have somebody who is out in the mainstream, and it has been pretty much confirmed that he's had people write his song or give him reference tracks, now he's open to public mockery, and he's just not simply going to respond to everyone. That's fucking ridiculous, and he's not going to respond to Shia LaBeouf. But it's just a common bit of software that's been downloaded, and now everyone's going to use it. And Shia LaBeouf is no exception. I mean, but are we at the same time going to act like we didn't hear this other freestyle by this what's his name? Oswin Benjamin? That's a guy that I've heard on one or two Team Backpack freestyles. He's always seemed pretty impressive, but he just bought it. He just bought it this time. And it's pretty crazy that this Shia LaBeouf video has about 5 million views, and I'm not hearing so much about Benjamin. I guess again that's the whole surprise factor in Shia LaBeouf. I guess that's the most intriguing thing. I can remember I went to see, what was that movie a couple years ago? It was with Four Brothers, with Tyrese, Mark Wahlberg, Andre 3000, and I went to see that, and I've never had such an experience where I didn't expect much from a movie, but when I saw it, I was amazed. And a large part of the amazement was the fact that it was a good movie, but also a good chunk of that was the fact that I didn't expect anything going into it. And a lot of Shia LaBeouf's freestyle was skill, but a good portion of that was the fact that you didn't expect Shia LaBeouf to do what he did. You have to love the authenticity. You have to really acknowledge the fact that when the freestyle was sort of building up, he was revving himself up. He really gives a shit about this. I didn't get the impression at all that this was just like, all right, I'm being the rap guy. I'm on the show. I'm promoting my new movie, and this doesn't really mean anything to me. I think it did. And afterwards, when he gave Sway a pound, he told him this was one of the biggest moments of my life. And that's pretty genuine, and it is, and it's great to see, because obviously he's a fan of hip hop. But let's not get this shit twisted for 1 second. I got to hear a couple more freestyles. We got to hear some music, you know? And by the looks of it, Shia LaBeouf is many things. He's a fucking troll. He is he's an actor. Apparently he does a little bit of rapping too. And you know, that weird performance art that he did with that little girl in that Sia video that seemed kind of pedophile-ish. But he's many things, so it wouldn't surprise you if, you know, a couple months from now he comes out with a mixtape or an EP. This isn't really like Joaquin Phoenix doing that fucking awkward thing that he did several years ago, where he was a rapper, and then, you know, and then he sort of revealed that he was just playing a practical joke on everybody, and it was he was just working on a movie or documentary or whatever the fuck it was. But my point is that Shia LaBeouf's style has always had the disadvantage of not being the mainstream sound. So it's not very lucrative, it's not very popular, and it's never going to get its fair share. The height of its recognition always comes in its target, in its pointing the finger at the mainstream and what the mainstream doesn't do right. And the common reaction that we need to stop is the reaction of, oh, did you hear that? I agree. You know what? Now that I think of it, I think he's just better than everyone. Better than who? He's better than such and such and such and such. Let's not insult these young rappers to the point that we're willing to place one little freestyle above, because this is an entire package. This is an argument of an entire package. It's not an argument of just lyrics, which people think is pretty much, they use the word lyrical as better. In other words, Nas is better than Joyner Lucas. They just think that better and lyrical, they're just interchangeable words. So people tend to just give a shit about lyrics, and they think that that's the entire package, when obviously it's not. And I've told you guys that time and time again. That's pretty much my opinion. But what do you guys think about this freestyle? How do you feel about Shia LaBeouf? How good do you think he was? How impressed were you by the Ashwin Benjamin part of the freestyle? Please let me know in the comment section, and I will see you guys next time.